Hey everybody, this is Death by D4, and welcome to the 5 worst damaging cantrips in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. There's a lot to go over, so be sure to subscribe and let's dive right on in. Starting off with number 5, we've got Poison Spray. As an action, you target a creature within 10 feet and force it to succeed on a Constitution saving throw. On a failed save, it takes 1d12 poison damage. The power of this cantrip also increases as you level up, capping out at 4d12. Honestly, when you first look at it, this cantrip doesn't appear all that bad. After all, aside from Toll the Dead, this is one of the only cantrips capable of dealing 1d12's worth of damage. However, what cements into my number 5 spot is its abysmally short range and terrible damage typing. Simply put, if you're a spellcaster, you really don't want to be this close to your target whenever possible. And although there's very few creatures resistant to poison damage, there are many more of them that are just straight up immune to it. In fact, there are more creatures immune to poison damage than any other damage type in general. And don't even get me started on its highly resistant saving throw requirement. All in all, not technically the worst cantrip that you could go with, but it's certainly not an ideal one for you to make any use out of, that's for sure. Next up at number 4, we've got the tried and true bard cantrip, Vicious Mockery. As an action, you target a creature within 60 feet and force it to succeed on a wisdom saving throw. On a failed save, it takes 1d4 psychic damage and gains disadvantage on its next attack roll made until the end of its next turn. The power of this cantrip also increases as you level up, capping out at 4d4. Honestly, I've spoken about this cantrip before. Sure, it may be useful early on, but the moment that you start encountering mid-level creatures with either multi-attack or saving throw abilities, its disadvantage effect really starts to fall off pretty quickly. And although its damage typing is nice, the combination of its terrible damage output and its highly resistant saving throw requirement just leaves it as a cantrip that's lacking so much when in comparison to other ones out there. And honestly, I argue that the only reason we keep seeing it is because it's the only damaging cantrip available naturally to bards. So yeah, it's definitely a poor cantrip for you to take if you ever have to, and one that I would actively avoid making any use out of at higher levels. Next up at number 3, we've got Lightning Lure. As an action, you target a creature within 15 feet and force it to succeed on a strength saving throw. On a failed save, it takes 1d8 lightning damage, and is pulled 10 feet towards you. The power of this cantrip also increases as you level up, capping out at 4d8. In general, unless you're some kind of melee spellcaster, there's really no reason for you to ever use this cantrip. Seriously, not only does its range suck, but the fact that it pulls your target right up beside you is typically very unwelcoming for spellcasters, as you're otherwise going to be putting yourself in a lot of danger. At the very least, you can use this cantrip to separate your targets from one of your allies, but that's where its usefulness unfortunately ends. Overall, a highly situational cantrip that I feel just most spellcasters will almost never have any practical use for. Next up at number 2, we've got a 3-way tie, Sword Burst, Thunderclap, and Word of Radiance. All of these cantrips allow you to target multiple creatures within 5 feet of you, and force them to make either a Dexterity or a Constitution saving throw. On a failed save, they take either 1d6 force damage, 1d6 thunder damage, or 1d6 radiant damage. The power of these cantrips also increase as you level up, capping out at 4d6 each. So, like with Lightning Lure, these cantrips are only useful when you're really close to your targets. However, unlike with Lightning Lure, the main use of these cantrips is to deal AoE damage, and unless you've got a whole bunch of enemies packed in right around you, you really can't make a whole lot of use out of them. Seriously, maybe if their range was like 10 feet, then there could be some use for you. But with it only being 5 feet, that's just way too short to really work with. Easily some of the worst damaging cantrips out there, and ones that I would actively avoid ever making any use out of. And finally, at number 1, we've got Create Bonfire. As an action, you target a location and create a 5-foot cube of fire. That fire lasts for up to 1 minute, assuming that you use your concentration each turn in order to maintain it. Any creature that moves into the bonfire space, ends its turn within it, or was already there when the cantrip was first cast must succeed on a dexterity saving throw, or take 1d8 fire damage. The power of this cantrip also increases as you level up, capping out at 4d8. Additionally, this cantrip can also light flammable objects on fire that aren't being worn or carried. Simply put, this is by far the dumbest damaging cantrip I've ever heard of. Seriously, why would you ever use this? Just cast Firebolt. It's stronger, has a much better range, and most importantly, does not require your concentration. Yes, you heard me right, this stupid cantrip requires your concentration. There is just no way I can imagine being so desperate to lock down a 5-foot area that I would rather cast this cantrip than simply cast any other concentration spell. Seriously, just wow! What a completely worthless cantrip, and one that I would highly recommend never ever taking. And that's it. Those were the 5 worst damaging cantrips in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. Did you like my list or do you disagree with it? Let me know down in the comments below. If you'd like to support the channel, be sure to give this video a like and consider supporting me over on Patreon. Patreon supporters gain access to my patron-only server over on Discord, where you can join in on my games, and chat with me and other patrons about anything D&D related. Be sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon if you haven't, and if you're interested in seeing more videos of mine, here's one right up over here. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see all of you in the next video.